Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into something that's pretty much a property owner's nightmare: water damage. It's one of those things nobody wants to even think about, but you know what? Understanding how to handle it is how you stay in control when things go wrong. So let's jump right in. Okay, so just imagine for a second. You walk down to your basement, you open the door, and your heart just sinks. There's water everywhere. That feeling, that initial wave of panic, it's intense. What do you even do? Who's the first person you're supposed to call? That's exactly the kind of high-stakes moment we're going to unpack today. You know, when we think of a flood, we picture some huge, catastrophic storm, right? But the reality is, most of the time, it's way more mundane. It's the stuff we live with every day. A pipe that freezes and bursts in the winter, a sump pump that just gives up, or maybe a washing machine hose that's seen better days. These are the real culprits behind most of these disasters. All right, so how do we get from total panic to, okay, I got this? Well, we've got a roadmap for you. First, we'll look at just how fast this stuff happens. Then we'll get into the hidden dangers. After that, we'll break down what the pros do, explain two really important terms you need to know, and wrap up with how to handle the aftermath. Okay, let's dive into our first section: water's unexpected invasion. And honestly, the key takeaway here is in that subtitle. It happens way faster than you think. I mean, this example really paints a picture of just how fast we're talking. This isn't some slow little drip. A burst supply line on your washing machine, that's basically like someone turned a fire hose on inside your walls. We're talking water under full pressure that doesn't just make a puddle. It blasts through the ceiling, soaks the walls, and hits multiple floors in, like, a matter of minutes. It's shockingly fast. So, okay, the water is moving like lightning. But here's the thing. What you can actually see is only half the battle. The real problem, the really scary stuff, is what's hidden. So let's talk about those hidden dangers. You see, when a professional shows up, they don't just see water. They immediately start classifying it into categories. And here's the starting point. Category 1. This is what we call clean water. Think of a broken water pipe or a faucet left on. Yeah, it's gonna wreck your stuff, but at least it doesn't pose a major immediate health risk if you touch it. But then you have the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Category 3. They call it black water. And trust me, it's as bad as it sounds. This is the really dangerous stuff. We're talking sewage backups or floodwaters from a river. This water is just grossly contaminated with bacteria, viruses, you name it. This is absolutely not a DIY situation. It's a biohazard, plain and simple. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's clean water or black water. The second things get wet, a clock starts ticking. And this number right here is the one you have to remember: 24 to 48 hours. That is your window, because after that, mold starts to grow. So when we say speed is important, it's not a suggestion, it's everything. And this is why that clock is so critical. Water is, well, it's sneaky. It's like a spy. It doesn't just stay where you see it. It wicks up inside your walls, it gets behind the baseboards, it soaks deep into the subfloors. What you see on the surface is literally just the tip of the iceberg. The real damage is being done by the moisture that's trapped out of sight, just waiting to cause rot and major structural problems down the line. Okay, so you've got hidden dangers and a clock that's ticking down fast. How in the world do you fight back against that? Well, that's where the professionals come in with their playbook. And this isn't about guessing. It's a full-on, science-based response. This timeline, man, this really shows you why every single hour matters. Look at this. Within minutes, your drywall and carpet padding are totally soaked. A few hours go by, and your beautiful wood floors start to swell and warp. Wait just a day or two, boom, you've got mold. And if you wait for days or weeks, you're not just fixing water damage anymore. You're looking at major structural problems and costs that just explode. So you might be wondering, how do the pros make sure they get it right? Well, they're not just winging it. They follow a super strict rulebook, the ANSI/IICRC S500 standard. Now that's a mouthful, but IICRC is basically the gold standard organization for the entire restoration industry. Their playbook lays out the science for everything: how to dry a wall properly, how to prevent more damage, and even what paperwork the insurance company is going to need. It takes all the guesswork out of it. And really, that whole big standard boils down to these 4 really logical steps. Step 1, emergency assessment and extraction. Basically, figure out what's going on and get all that standing water out of there fast. Step 2, they bring in the heavy-duty equipment for structural drying. Step 3 is super important: daily monitoring. They're not just guessing, they're using moisture meters to track the progress.
And finally, step 4, verification. They prove with data that everything is back to being properly dry. It's a system, and it works.
Okay, now here's something that trips a lot of people up. You're going to hear two words thrown around a lot: mitigation and restoration. They sound kind of similar, but they mean very different things. So let's clear that up right now.
This is probably the best way to think about it. Triage versus surgery. Think of mitigation as the emergency room. It's the first aid. The goal is to stop the bleeding, right? Get the water out, set up the fans and dehumidifiers, and stop the damage from getting any worse. That's the priority in the first day or two. Then comes restoration. That's the surgery. That's the rebuilding part, replacing the ruined drywall, putting in new flooring, painting. So one is about stabilizing the patient, and the other is about making them whole again.
So the emergency response team has done their job, and the rebuilding has started. But what about you? What are your first moves, and how does this whole insurance thing work? Let's get into that in our last section here, navigating the aftermath.
Okay, if this ever happens to you, this right here is your checklist. This is what you do. First, and only if it's safe to do so, find the source of the water and shut it off. Then, kill the electricity to that area. Next, start moving anything valuable you can to a dry spot. And while you're doing that, pull out your phone and document everything. Photos, videos, the more the better. Then, you make 2 phone calls. First, a certified restoration company, and then your insurance company.
Now let's talk about the part everyone dreads, insurance. Because here's the deal, not all water is created equal in their eyes. Something sudden and accidental like a pipe bursting, your standard policy will probably cover that. But a slow leak that's been happening for months because something wasn't maintained, yeah, they'll likely say that's on you. And here's the biggest one. Actual flooding, like from a river overflowing, is not covered by a standard homeowner's policy. You need a separate flood policy for that. Really, the best advice is to know what your policy covers long before you ever have to make that call.
So there you have it. We've gone from that initial moment of panic through the science of drying all the way to recovery. And it all kind of boils down to this one last thought. You know, your property, your home, it has a story. And the real question is it ready for an unexpected chapter that's written by water? Because knowing the playbook we just walked through, that is the absolute best way to make sure you're prepared.